I don't know about you, but I've always loved music. I remember growing up in Puerto Rico when I was little. I don't know, in the 80s and 90s, I would always like listen to music. And back then, you would have to like record music from radio.
I want to record it.
Sit down.
If of course if you don't have the means to like buy music, right? So you get a tape and you find your favorite radio station and you wait for your favorite song for them to play and for you to record, and you hit record, the red button.
Press this button.
There you go. You would record your favorite song. And then of course I had little jobs here and there, and then I was able to maybe buy some cassettes and buy some music. And then in the 90s, you would buy CDs and people would exchange CDs, started burning CDs with music. And then Napster came, right? You guys remember Napster? Napster was more, I don't know, I would say late 90s, early 2000s for sure. And with Napster, I remember when I went to the University of Georgia as an exchange student, we had a T1 modem, internet speed kind of thing. And in a week, I downloaded like 900 songs, right? And to this date, I believe I have those songs saved somewhere back at home in Puerto Rico, somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know the answer to that. But then I never understood, like I never thought about the business of music. I would only like enjoy music, dance to music, and I would enjoy listening, working out with music, driving with music, just doing your chores around, just listening to music.
I like it.
And music was always present in my life. It was like the it thing growing up. And I still listen to music. But lately, like I've been listening a lot to what companies are doing with music. And I've been reading a lot about music and the music industry. So I represent a number of Grammy Award winners when it becomes about professional services, tax services, and business advisory services that we provide. We provide services to music producers, singer-songwriters, people in the movie industry, and so forth, right? So in order for me to add value to my clients, I have to understand the industry. I pay a lot of attention to it, right? So I've bought books about Ticketmaster, I bought books about Sony and how Tony Motola made hits after hits and after hits. I watch documentaries and I follow different artists, and I follow also hedge fund investors that invest in the industry. They buy music and music catalogs, right? And I see how all this has been happening, I don't know, in the last few years. So one of the top ones that are in my head, some of the ones that are in top for me as it relates to the ones that I pay a lot of attention to, is the deal that Michael Jackson did by buying the Beatles catalog in the 80s. He bought it for mid-$40 million. It's reported anywhere between $45 to $48 million in the 80s. And like at the time he was, doing business with Paul McCartney, and Paul McCartney, an ex-Beatle, decided not to buy it because it was too expensive or because he didn't think about the music industry. But something different of Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney is that Michael Jackson grew up in a family that was in the industry. Since the age of 5, he's working as a musician, as an artist, as an entertainer. And then once the Jackson 5 started getting more attention, Motown, which was the first Afro-owned record label in the US, at least with that level of success, made a deal with the Jacksons 5. Like they hired them, they brought them in. And I don't know how old he was, but he was less than 10 years old. By working with like Berry Gordy, Jackie Robinson, like working with like his father, Joseph Jackson, the Jacksons 5, Diana Ross, the Supremes, he understood the business from a young age, right? Like he's not only singing and performing and getting better at it, but he's like around with executives and deal makers and producers and composers and so forth. So he understood the power of the music industry from a young age. And of course he develops and, he did Off the Wall and Thriller, and he became an icon, like an idol, if you will. And so he's making so much money that Sony, back then it was called CBS Records, backed him up to buy the Beatles catalog out of an Australian business person. And CBS supported Michael because pretty much he was earning so much money that Sony could advance him the $48 million, but Michael was making so much money on royalties that he was able to pay that no problem. Fast forward, right? So he's still making deals, he's still making records, and And so he bought the whole thing for, let's call it $48 million. And the whole catalog, he kept on buying more catalogs. Like he kept on buying more songs, because the music, as you own the catalog and as you own the masters, like every time the song plays, you get paid. And you can also rent the music for specific like commercial or movie, and you get royalties out of that. Like every time he plays, you get paid. So he kept them adding to, to his catalog over the years. Like he would have different artists that he would own their music and they wouldn't even know it. So he had a partnership with Sony, and that partnership grew to like $1 billion investment. So from $48 million investment, it grew to $1 billion. And then he cashed out for whatever reasons. He needed to, definitely he went to some situations where he needed cash, and so he was able to like cash out 50% of it to the tune of $300 million. So him and Sony created a partnership where his share was $300 million. So from 48 million, it went up to 300 million, almost between 6.5x his initial investment. And then when he died, the value of the catalog went up to 1.5 billion. So and his stake, his 50% share of the partnership was worth 750 million. Unfortunately, he died, and he was not able to like enjoy his family and the share of his success and everything else. So the value of his estate, music-wise, was 750 million. So from 48 million to 750 million. So 700 million gain. And then the music started getting my attention. Then I started reading more about it. Like one of the bigger investors, Bill Ackman invested $2 billion into Universal Music Group. So Bill Ackman invested $2.8 billion to buy 7.1% of Universal Music Group. And Universal Music Group is basically the largest music publisher in the world. So you have one of the most successful investors in this generation, Bill Ackman with Pershing Square, investing almost $3 billion for a 7% stake in the largest music publisher in the world. So think about it. If you have a billionaire investor, hedge fund owner, investing billions of dollars into music, that means it could be a very profitable industry, especially if you play it well. Why? Because, music gets streamed, music gets played, and for that, money flows. So every time a song gets played, that's part of Universal Group catalog, this investor gets paid. So I find that very, very interesting. Like it's I don't know, it's fascinating the way I see it. Then I kept reading, right? And then I saw that Sony Music, right? The same company, the same record company that Michael Jackson had deals with, but Bruce Springsteen entire catalog for reportedly $500 million, and this is during the pandemic. This is like a year or 2 years ago. So Bruce Springsteen, which is one of the national heroes of America, music-wise, been in the industry since the 60s, sold his entire catalog to Sony for $500 million. That's a lot of money. So if you see it this way, musicians sell their catalog, their music, for many, many reasons, right? Bruce is getting older, right? He still performs, he still does shows, and for that he gets paid. But then he's like, okay, I don't have to create, like I see a lot of value in what I created many decades ago, and my fans still love me. My fans still love what I've created. Maybe it's time for me to cash out and reap the benefit of what I've created. And of course, there's a lot of tax planning that goes around this, and financial planning and so forth, right? But now he can make sure that there's a entire legacy for his family financial wise, and then he can make donations. He can pretty much do whatever he wants to do with this kind of money, right? So I just find that fascinating. And then there's another company called Primary Wave that bought the King of Soul, Mr. James Brown, his entire catalog for $90 million. And of course, James Brown died many, many, many years ago, and he even got himself into tax problems, but he came out of it, and he kept working, and unfortunately died. But his entire catalog got sold for $90 million, right? King of Soul. If you're a fan of rock, if you remember Motley Crue from the 80s and 90s, BMG bought the entire catalog for $90 million. If you enjoy electronic music, as I do, and you enjoy David Guetta sold his entire catalog for reportedly $100 million. That's a lot of money, right? And David Guetta is still a young guy. He still performs. He still creates music. But if you really think about it, it's okay, wow, I've created a lot of amazing sounds and amazing music, and people have enjoyed, people have danced to it. I've done festivals around the world. Maybe it's time for me to reap the benefits of it. Boom. And he sold his catalog for like 100 million. Shakira, I grew up listening to Shakira in the 90s when, she came out of Colombia and, made a great success with Pies Descalzos. To this day, her die-hard fans probably would say that's her best record ever. And then she did 2 or 3 records in Spanish, and then she crossed over laundry services in the US, in the early 2000s with the Latino boom. Started with Ricky Martin, Jennifer Lopez, Marc Anthony, Enrique Iglesias, those guys in the late 90s, right? And I mean, Shakira became like a global phenomenon with like the way she danced, her style, her music, the way of singing, her ethnic, background. She's like Colombian Latina, but also she's got like Middle Eastern roots. And then she's in the US. It's like an amazing phenomenon, if you will, that almost never happened. She sold her catalog to an undisclosed amount not too long ago. And of course, it's reportedly that Shakira had some issues with the Spanish tax collector, and maybe she had to make some moves with her assets in order for her to satisfy any issues that she might have to. So, but we don't know if that's a reason or not, right? We can just speculate. And we love Shakira. What the show that she did at the Super Bowl, this is early 2020, when COVID was not even a threat, if you will. She did one of the best performance along with Jennifer Lopez at the Super Bowl, right? At the halftime show. So people do love Shakira big time. And she sold her music, right? She cashed out. She basically said, I've been in the industry for, I don't know, maybe 30 years, 20, 25, 30 years. I have a family now. She has got 2 sons with Piqué, the Spanish soccer player, football. She's like, okay, this is part of my legacy. I've made my fans happy. They've enjoyed my music. I've toured around the world. She's got a foundation called Pies Descalzos, and with that, she helps youngsters, right, with true help that's needed. And it was time maybe for her to move on to her next phase. And for that reason, she sold her music. So if you see, guys, there's like a lot of opportunity in the music industry, right? If you are a producer, if you own your masters, if you own what you created, and you've made like fans, if you read 1,000 True Fans, right? Like you only need 1,000 true fans in order for you to have, or there's this theory that if you have 1,000 true fans, you can make a great business out of it, right? Because you can sell to a captive audience, and then you can have like what's called a network effect, right? Of your creation. So if you are like in this creator space, you can learn a lot from these artists, that for generations and generations, they created music and they created sound that made people happy and perform around the world. And at some point they decided to cash out, right? And liquidate and bring a lot of cash in, right? And they probably did it at the right moment when COVID hit, right? Because they were not performing for a couple of years, and they probably said, you know what? This is probably the right time for us to like do this, right? And I just found that fascinating, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Also, if you're an investor and like, take the route of Bill Ackman, maybe you can invest by buying rights to music, right? And you can monetize on that. You can resell it, and then you have passive income as you get royalties in. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this vlog. For a long time, I wanted to share with you my view on the music industry and some of the things that I've seen. I just found it fascinating. If you like this video, go ahead and click like and subscribe and share with your friends. And thank you for watching again. This is Victor Delerme. I'm a CPA, and we'll see you in the next one.